subject matter expert, to the front lines, if I know there's going to be a clash,
Yeah.
I can send, the other person on my team who I think personality wise will be, a better fit, for that particular situation. So, and that includes me taking a step back. If, I have to take an honest assessment that, hey, this person's going to get along with someone that's on my team that's junior more than they are me.
Hello, everybody, and welcome again. It is Leaders Talk. It's your favorite time of the week. Who's your favorite guy? It's me, Andrew Dupey, the head of communication for Leaders Brands, and it is our season 2. And as you have been watching in season 2, we have been doing a large overall view of leadership DNA. And today I have the honor of speaking to Brandon Blewett. So let me introduce you to Brandon, and then he's going to introduce you to, he is going to introduce himself to you. Brandon is an author. He's a frequent business traveler. He's a seasoned M&A expert with over a decade of global deal experience, having driven more than $200 billion in transactions. That's with a B, ladies and gentlemen. He's currently serving as the head of corporate development at the largest private equity-backed pavement services roll-up. Brandon leads the charge. And what he does, he leads the charge in strategic mergers, acquisitions, helping entrepreneurs transfer their hard-earned earnings, their sweat, and their equity into tangible liquidity. His extensive career deals in consulting, and it's taken him around the globe. It's earning him the Million Miller status with leading U.S. airline and top-tier corporations. Brandon is the author of How to Avoid Strangers on Airplanes, which, we all want to do that. And he is one of our contributing authors in Leadership DNA, which is something we're concentrating on very hard here. Brandon, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited with your curriculum vitae there. Kind of introduce yourself, though, to our audience and let them know really who is Brandon.
Yeah, absolutely. So, funny enough, I started my journey out of college wanting to be Jerry Maguire, right? And as you can tell, that didn't happen. But I'm actually very happy with where I wound up. But law school, sent me to the University of South Carolina. Graduated from law school in the Great Recession, so I was able to do a 1-year MBA program, and that put me into M&A tax. So it was in the tax realm, which is very exciting. I'm sure all of the listeners want to hear about that subject matter. But it really it got me into a big firm, and it got me into understanding the mechanics of transactions. And
right.
Being on calls, I understood, hey, I don't necessarily want to do tax for the rest of my life, but I do want to be in the M&A space. And there was a lot of parallels between M&A and sports agency that I was able to connect the dots over the arc of my career. So as you mentioned, switched from tax to strategy consulting, and worked on a lot of global transactions, huge dollar signs, and, involved with those closes. But ultimately, where I've found kind of my niche is in lower middle market private equity, or acquiring founder owner businesses where as you said, these guys and gals have formed these businesses from nothing, from scratch, and we're able to come in and give them an injection of capital so that they can scale and be a part of something bigger and greater. So it's a lot of fun, and I genuinely enjoy what I do, and don't dread going to work on Mondays, which is kind of a nice feeling after having run the rat race for a while.
Well, Brandon, you and I are in the same in the same space there. I love going to work every day. But yeah, I mean, just tell us a little bit, because I mean, a lot of our audience obviously are potential authors, it's people that actually want to tell their story. Tell me a little bit about why you actually wanted to tell that story about yourself.
Yeah, a couple things. So I double majored in English and marketing and advertising in college. So I enjoyed writing, and then law school it's a lot of writing, right? So I think just writing itself is something that comes naturally and that I enjoy doing. But why I decided to write the chapter in the book, the chapter, it's always very compelling to me to read stories of other people that aren't the Bill Gates, right? They aren't necessarily,
Right. Yeah.
political revolutionaries or, military leaders, to realize that, hey, along our, call it normal paths, there's still success stories, and there's still things that, while my hardship, may not be as perilous as someone that's, going through something just, tragic, there's still frustrations that we face. There's still roadblocks, and we still have to figure out how to navigate around them. And I thought it would be really cool to be a part of that for, Leadership DNA. For the broader book, I mean, like you said, I've been doing deals since 2010. Yeah, 2010. So for a while, which involves being on airplanes every single week. And, when you're flying commercial, every single week, there's a lot of, habits and passenger, traits that sort of, creep up that I cataloged and found a way to tie those habits into leadership lessons, based on, circumstances that occurred in my professional journey.
Yeah, I mean that's fascinating to me because you meet so many people in that kind of an environment.
Yeah.
And I mean, myself, we ladies and gentlemen, Brandon and I already had a conversation then where I talked about my love of flying, and I myself am a pilot. But yeah, I mean, tell me a little bit about that. Just what kind of stories have you run into in your experience that are relevant to people that, maybe business leaders that are talking to us right now and just kind of want to hear about, what you've done in that scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if we focus on the chapter in Leadership DNA,
Yeah.
it's called, building the aircraft at 10,000 feet. Now, obviously, the FAA prevents that from happening in real life, thankful to passengers, all across, the world, or I guess the US with the FAA. But, so many times we find ourselves in situations where we are having to build the aircraft at 10,000 feet. Very rarely do you come into an organization, a project, a deal where you're starting from ground zero, you're building everything, nothing's in flight, and you basically have all of this time to build out processes and assemble a team before, you're headed down the runway and, ascending. And so I think kind of taking that, idiom of, hey, you're going to build the airplane at, 10,000 feet or 30,000 feet. How do you do that? And I think that, it's not scientific, right? So what I wanted to do is, hey, look, it's going to vary by profession, by situation, but there are certain things that you can look at within your team, so that you are able to, assemble the aircraft and make sure that the plane does make it to the runway, or to the landing runway safely, every time you encounter that type of situation.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, we all talk about how we do business, and how we do business always comes back for me. And every single time I talk to a CEO entrepreneur, is about team. It's about team building. It's about being able to actually construct people that are going to be able to help grow your business, grow every kind of element of it.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? I mean, that's what most of our audience is always interested in learning about.
So I think it's twofold. So I'd say one, with my internal team, we focus on that first.
Yeah.
And in the chapter I talk about, being a sync crew and then being properly fueled. In M&A, you're obviously going to have people that are, heavy finance focused, but there's also people that are project management focused. My job is to cross-pollinate my team so they understand at least that, call it 3 to 6 feet, every subject matter. Now, I've only got 3 people, so we're running lean, given that we've done 14 transactions in the last 13 months. And they all have different specialties, but what I wanted to make sure is that deals rarely die due to, in the chapter say Matlock moments in the financial statements, right? It's usually personality clashes. And so if they understand, certain terms in the P&L, or someone else understands certain terms as it relates to, comp and benefits, and I see a personality mismatch, I don't have to send the subject matter expert, to the front lines if I know there's going to be a clash. I can send, the other person on my team who I think personality wise will be, a better fit, for that particular situation. So and that includes me taking a step back. If, I have to take an honest assessment that, hey, this person's going to get along with someone that's on my team that's junior more than they are me. And not to say like there's severe clashes, but there's just certain times, especially in deals when you're in constant contact, you're prodding and poking for information where, sometimes they're just sick of me and it needs to come from somebody else. So I think understanding how the team is synced and working together and cross, pollinating skills is kind of, the first thing. And then, for entrepreneurs or, in our space, it's a lot of hours, right? Now we love what we do, and there's times that, we have breaks, between deals, but I have to make sure they're fueled, right? For me, that's, I'm a fitness geek. Like I have to work out every day, or my team laughs. They're like, if you didn't lift in the morning and get your coffee, we're like, just go to the gym and then come back.
But that's important because everybody actually has to take their time.
Right.
When you're working really hard, I have heard people who have said, it's like, I'll rest when I die.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't like that.
No.
I mean,
it's a way to burn out. And so, for me, it's the gym, but for my, other people on my team, it's, I have a guy that he loves riding motorcycles. So I'm like, make sure you take time to, go do that and you clear your mind. Other person on my team loves like politics and political events and fundraisers. And, I'm like, go attend an event, go be in that world. If that's what, gets the juices flowing and, rejuvenates you to keep doing what we do, at work.
Yeah, I mean, it's same with me. I mean, I like flying.
Right. Yeah, it's awesome.
And that it's all about being able to find that work-life balance that it actually enhances what you're doing as an entrepreneur.
Right.
When you're able to achieve that and you're able to kind of trickle that down, because I mean, listen, I've always said this, and everybody's going to get mad at me because I'm going to say this again. Glenn Ross is not an instruction manual. It's a cautionary tale.
ABC, always be closing.
I know. And we watch that movie, and everybody's like, that may be how I should run my business, but it doesn't work. It doesn't actually make a better business to use that kind of like fear-based entrepreneurial spirit. Yeah.
And when I have, look, I like what I do. So, work to me doesn't feel like work, but you have to understand that other people on your team may not feel that way. And so, and I think, and that's part of having a sync crew to me is understanding the needs of each person. And there may be some people that, I have, one guy on my team that just, he loves what we do too. And so I have to tell him sometimes like, dude, like go to bed so that I can go to bed, but then there's other people that we work with, not necessarily on my team, but within the organization that they need, more, lead time or more turnaround time. And you have to respect that. Otherwise you get burnout, people quit, and then you lose institutional knowledge that's, extremely valuable.
Right. I mean, and that's kind of the problem with, I mean, I say the American system because I've had a lot of people on here that are Europeans that say, like, we don't do what you do. but you're kind of a leader in this, and that's why I like digging into it a little bit. But yeah, so Brandon, why then? I obviously kind of know the answer to this. Why authorship? What's authorship doing for you that is working for you and that you feel like is going to actually be something that's tangible for you?
So on a personal level, it's cathartic. I mean, I think there is an element of, putting your experiences to paper that makes you realize, okay, there was a point to everything that's happened, right? I mean, that is sort of, and it was a fun process, to go through. And I think second, a lot of people say they want to write a book, and they've got a great story and they just never take the time to do it. And, for those that do, I think there's an element of credibility, that, having a book gives you, that you took the time, you had enough self-discipline to, cut off a certain amount of time and activities to put your thoughts to paper and to refine it and make it into a tangible, piece of work that, a lot of people respect. And I think that's, something that I've just wanted to do. It's been a personal goal of mine. And it was a lot of fun. And, there's a lot of opportunities that come, when you have a book and you get to meet other, like-minded people. And I think, from there, it's just, it's generating a new network that you wouldn't otherwise have, which I think is really important in all professional endeavors.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I hear a lot, and a lot of people say the same thing. I kind of, it trickled in a little bit about the whole concept of, oh my gosh, I don't have enough time to do this.
Right, right.
And it's a joke I use when we do like sales role plays, and we talk about like people that, what are the main objections to having a book? I always throw in, I want it done yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because so many authors say that. They say before they write their book, oh my gosh, I just want it done 10 years ago.
Yeah. I say that, and it's funny, more so with the solo book, but had I written, I mean, the idea for my solo book I had probably 8 years ago, and had started jotting things down. But had I written it then, I think it would have been more of just a roast, right, of annoying travelers, and it wouldn't have tied back to lessons that I've learned as I've kind of gotten smacked around in my career. And not that anyone's gonna be like, oh, he solved the world's problems, but I think, a roast, while, maybe somewhat gratifying in meme form, is probably not, a book that, hey, I'm, now involved with, some nonprofit boards, that I don't think writing a book that just made fun of people would have, opened those types of doors, right?
Surprised. You would be surprised.
Fair. Maybe I want to get invited to a Tom Brady's, birthday party roast that just, aired Netflix.
Well, yeah, I mean, but you're right. I mean, you can do a book that's going to just like hit a few people that say, "Oh my gosh, this is hilarious! I love it." But it's about growing your business with a book. It's about actually connecting it to who you are and what you are. So, and many of our people in our audience are trying to do that right now. They're thinking about, well, why should I write a book? What should I do to actually connect this to my business, to begin making money for me? Because we're all in this to make money. I mean, I'm not in this for free right now. So, what would you say to some of them that are kind of fence sitting and doing that?
So, I think for me, so obviously I don't own my own business. I'm working for, a paving company, but what I enjoy doing is helping shape, strategy and scale for other companies. So right now in my current role, we're deploying capital, we're acquiring businesses, and then from there, they're able to use the capital that our parent company has and, expand their services, go into new markets, et cetera, et cetera. One thing that's always, been on my mind is how do I get on the front end where I could be at a board level position at one of these companies to help them make the strategic decisions, that involve M&A, organic growth, et cetera. And, I think having a book that shows leadership style, your kind of strategic thinking, put in paper, is a tangible way for, people that are looking for board members or, looking for leadership, positions to say, hey, here's, you don't have to have it on your resume, right? It's like, oh, there's a book, and people are going to naturally want to have that conversation with you. Yeah. And so I've been able to get involved in some nonprofit boards as good board experience. And I think from there, it's, taking it to having a for-profit board experience where there's equity involved and you're seeing a business grow. And then, when they sell, there's the payoff, right? So it's fun, and there's financial reward, which is also fun.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. I mean, that's kind of what I hear a lot, is the idea that, somebody that works really hard and they're putting every day into growing their business. They're trying to get attention to themselves because, it's a crowded world.
Right.
And then you throw out a book and it's kind of something that's just, it's on automatic pilot.
Right.
It's your thing that you have out there that continually is able to actually bring attention to you.
Which is both exciting and terrifying, right?
No, yeah. And it's terrifying. And that I love that you mentioned that, because that's one of the things that people don't really realize about books when they do it. They don't know how terrifying the process is.
Right.
Yeah, reviews can sometimes be weird. Some random guy out there can decide your book is something that he absolutely hates and is going to leave a bad review
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
And it's not, he may not even read it. Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think that's why it's so important. What I enjoyed about the process was really identifying your target audience and making
Right.
sure that, you know, the title, the cover, and everything showcases exactly who should be reading it. So you know, what's important to me, if someone were to pick up, you know, my book that wasn't in the intended target audience and they hated it, it's like, okay, well, they probably didn't understand the lingo because there's a lot of travel lingo, corporate jargon, you know, that I make fun of that may not make sense, right? But people that have run the rat race in consulting, travel every week, you know, for work, you know, if they're the ones that are rating it, you know, positively, I mean, that's the target audience, and those are the people that are probably going to read the book and say, hey, I want to talk to this guy. I want to find a way to use him in my organization to help us grow. I mean, that's, you know, that's the point. There's always going to be people that are, you know, critics, right? I mean, even Oscar winning movies have people that, you know, rated the movie, you know, poorly. So
Yeah,
yeah,
somebody out there didn't like The Godfather.
right, exactly,
I don't want to
exactly.
meet him.
Yeah.
They're out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, and kind of leading that in though, Brandon, as we kind of start to wrap up here. So, what's something that you want to leave with our audience? I mean, just kind of I don't know, a golden nugget. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned that a lot. A golden nugget, something that is useful for them that you feel like we haven't touched on that they can use.
I think, you know, one would be just do it. You know, it's much, you can just like, you know, anything where you're worried about the consequences, it's like, you
Yeah,
know, mulling over it is much more painful than actually doing it.
yeah,
And I would
yeah.
say, you know, my biggest golden nugget is, you have to be vulnerable in your writing, because if you try to portray yourself so carefully because you want to manufacture, you know, a persona, or characteristics about yourself, I think it's easy to kind of, you know, call the BS. And so I think writing about your weaknesses, talking about times when you flubbed up, you know, messed up, taken missteps, and what you know, learned from it, I think is really important to include, because I think that's what really resonates with people, because, you know, nobody's perfect, just like no, you know, piece of work is perfect. And so I think that is what I would tell people is, you know, don't be afraid to be vulnerable. That's not saying you have to air all your dirty laundry, right? But I think, you know, making sure that people see the real you, is something that's important.
I think that's fantastic. I think that is exactly what our audience wants to hear. Brandon, how can our audience find out more about you?
You can go to my website, which is www.brandonblewett.com, BrandonBlewett. And then I'm also Brandon in the Air on Instagram and X. So yeah, because I'm generally in the air.
Ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and click those links down below. Leadership DNA is also out, and go ahead and buy a copy of that. Read Brandon's chapter. The link to that is also down below. Brandon, thank you.
Thank
We're going
you.
to talk a little bit more after this and have a little bit more fun, but I really liked having you on today.
All right, it was a pleasure.